In 1984, Kevin Eastman and Peter Lard self-published a gritty little indie comic called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Well, it caught fire. By 1987, Playmate Toys said, hey, let's turn this into a kid-friendly gold mine. So they did. What followed was what many people call Turtle-mania, a glorious pizza-powered cultural takeover that lasted well into the 90s. And it all started with a 5-part miniseries. We're diving headfirst straight into that animated sewer full of rats, turtles, and robot ninjas, and revisiting Season 1 of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles today on Planet Video. So our story begins with April O'Neil on the evening news delivering a report on a series of robberies that have been happening all across New York. The thieves have gotten away with a ton of high-tech equipment, but their methods are that of ancient ninjas. And how do we know that these robbers are ninjas?
Well, look for yourself. It's made in Japan.
Yeah, giveaway.
And can we just talk about this dude's toupee for just a second? Or how about the fact that nobody bothered to untie the security guard? So anyway, a bunch of thugs show up and threaten April because their boss doesn't want these stories on the news anymore. And y'all, April's crew ain't loyal at all. They ditch homegirl at the first sign of trouble. April makes a break for it and winds up in the sewer with the bad guys chasing her down. She gets cornered, and that's when the turtles show up, and they quickly wipe out the whole goon squad. Now, seeing the turtles and everything, this is all too much for old girl to handle, so she straight up faints. And when she wakes up, there's a giant rat offering her sushi in his apartment in the sewer. And now, man, I don't think I'd be eating no raw sewer fish, but this girl's guts are built different.
This is seriously grossing me out.
Well, maybe not. Master Splinter gives April the whole rundown about the origin story of himself and the turtles. Turns out Splinter's real name is Hamato Yoshi, and he was a sensei in an ancient dojo. But he's got this hater named Oroko Saki, and Saki sets up the worst frame job in history and gets old boy kicked out. So your boy came on over to the U.S. But Ninja Master, Karate Sensei, I don't look so good on a job application. So homie's got to live in the sewers. So anyway, one day some turtles fell down the drain, there was some mystery goo, and everybody mutated. And y'all, April is shady. She tries to run away and make a news story about the turtles, but Donatello is like, nah, man, you're going to stay here with us till we get this thing figured out. So they decide to work together to try to find the ninja robbers. So April gives the boys some pretty convincing disguises if you don't look at them too much or, at all. Somehow they end up on the ninja side of town, like literally. So of course your boys had to hit up that ninja pizza joint, and I gotta admit, I'd probably do the same thing. While the fellas chow down, April wanders off and finds a ninja security business. And it turns out that's the bad guys. She tries to call the station, but she ends up getting kidnapped instead. They end up finding April pretty quickly, but it turns out to be a trap. So now the Foot Clan got the whole gang on the roof ready to fight these 4 turtles. But turns out they're all robots, and honestly, they're more worthless than the last goon Shredder sent. So Shredder's back at home watching the fight on pay-per-view, and he recognizes the fighting style as that of the one and only Hamato Yoshi. The bad guys make a break for it, but the turtles chase after. They end up in some office building after hours. Oh, sorry, I meant a ninja office building. And that's when Shredder really gets a good look at them and realizes this is Hamato Yoshi's turtles. And my question at this point is, how does he even know about that? Oh, and the best part, we never find out. Anyway, the Foot Clan floods the building and they get away. So the next day, April comes back because she wants the turtles to help her find the ninja robot's hideout. So they take off through the sewer. Then they see a tunnel, but they decide to go tell Master Splinter before they go and follow it. Back at the Technodrome, Shredder is getting hounded by Krang for not having given him a body yet, even though Krang is the one that's been showing Shredder how to use all of this fantastic technology he's been stealing. Shredder says he's got more important stuff going on with all these turtles running around and stuff. You see, it turns out that the purple goo was actually a mutagen that Shredder had dumped into the sewer to try and knock off Splinter. But his plan kind of backfired, and Yoshi got even more powerful because of the fact that he mutated into a rat. So then Krang is like, well then why don't you mutate some of your own thugs with the animals that are more powerful than turtles? Shredder likes this idea, so he uses the mutagen to mutate Rocksteady and Bebop. Splinter ends up finding the Technodrome first, and he immediately gets kidnapped. The Turtles also find it shortly after, and they wind up fighting some robots again. They end up finding Splinter, and then Shredder sends his mutants to fight the Turtles, but they beat them up pretty quick, and then they lead the dim-witted duo into the most obvious trap ever. And you know what? Right here, Michelangelo says it best.
Those dudes are so dumb!
The Turtles get Master Splinter back home to rest, and then they decide they're going to go catch Shredder and make him turn Splinter back into a human. Meanwhile, Shredder sets up shop in an old abandoned house and sends out some drones to look for new technology that he can steal. He finds a guy who built some high-tech mouse traps, and he's pitching them to a pest control company. But his pitch doesn't go so well, and he ends up getting literally thrown out into the streets, where Shredder is waiting in the alley to take him up on the deal. Turns out Shredder is planning on building hundreds of these little robots and then using them to take over the city. But he gets a little too excited when only a few have been constructed, and he sends those out to try to find Splinter specifically. And they do, and again, Splinter and the Turtles destroy them all pretty easily. Shredder's evil plans absolutely suck. Like, we are at a loss ratio that is just completely taking away any credibility that this man ever had as a supervillain. The logo on the machine leads the Turtles to the name Baxter Stockman. They show up at April's house and ask her to help them find him. Now, back in these days, we didn't have Google, we didn't even have the internet, but somehow old girl managed to Google it, and she comes back with a name, a photograph, and an address. And in the 5 minutes she's gone, I don't know, this was 87, so if she did have internet, it would have been the worst dial-up ever. So she was probably gone about 10 minutes, and the team absolutely wrecks old girl's apartment. She is not getting this deposit back. Back at Shredder's hideout, Stockman has finished the remote for the Mousers, and Shredder unleashes them onto the city. When Stockman gets home, he finds out that Shredder has actually sent the Foot Clan to his house to take him out. But the Turtles show up and they end up taking out the Foot Clan and tying up Stockman for good measure. Baxter tells the guys where Shredder is hiding, and to thank him for the trouble, they leave the man tied up for the police, and they steal his van. The Turtles head back to April's apartment, but the Mousers get there first. April and Splinter hold off the robots as they absolutely destroy old girl's apartment. The Turtles show up and save the day just as the apartment building collapses. But April takes her newfound homelessness pretty well, and she drives the Turtles to the mansion that Shredder is hiding in. Michelangelo goes in alone first, but he ends up getting caught by Shredder. Finally, we're 3 episodes in and old boy finally gets a win? But the rest of the gang is outside, and they're getting run up on by hundreds of these little Mousers. Michelangelo struggles to get free until Krang, of all people, unties him and tells him where to find the Master Control. You see, Krang thinks that if the Turtles keep on messing up Shredder's plans, then Shredder will have no choice but to build him a body, which will make him invincible. And you see, Shredder knows this too, and that's part of why he's holding up production, because even he knows better than to trust Krang. And by the way, I have no idea how big Krang is. In the first episode, he looks pretty huge, but here he looks pretty little. He shrinks a little more as the series goes on, and then he grows again as the series goes on even later. So, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Michelangelo has a brief fight with the Shredder, and he ends up tricking him into blowing up the Master Control for the Mousers.
So dumb!
The Turtles then reprogram the robots to go after Shredder instead, but he escapes in the Technodrome. With Baxter in jail, the Turtles decide to go back to his house and use the equipment there to turn the van into a tracking station to find the Technodrome. Well, at least this place is built better than April's apartment was. Back at the Technodrome, Krang tells Shredder that he refuses to help him with any more technology until he gets a body. So Shredder's like, okay, I'll just open the portal to Dimension X that you came through, and we'll pull some tech out of your old homeworld. Krang tries to warn Shredder that if he does open the portal, that there's no telling what will come through it. And then Shredder's like, I'm gonna do it anyway. Sure enough, some kids matching the description of what kids thought was cool in the 80s fly out in what appear to be flying Corvettes. The kids are followed by 2 rock warriors hot on their trail. The rock guys end up having a gunfight with Rocksteady and Bebop, but ultimately decide to chase after those pesky teenagers from Dimension X. The Rock Dudes don't get very far before they run into their supreme leader Krang, and the bad guys finally all get on the same page. April and the Turtles are tracking the Technodrome in their stolen, tricked-out van. And how does this sit with your childhood? I never knew that the Turtle van was stolen until I watched this just now. The gang sees the neutrinos fly out, and they decide to go after them. After a pretty wild chase scene, the Turtles manage to get the teens landed, only to decide, hey, these dudes are pretty cool. And they go hit up the arcade. But the fun doesn't last. The Stone Warriors blast the arcade and the Turtles dash into action. But before the fight can get really good, every cop and army tank in the USA starts making their way to the scene of the crime. Now the Turtles decide that they don't need no warrant, so they retreat to consult with Master Splinter, while the bad guys release a bomb in the air that will cause the weather to become total chaos and flatten the city. The Turtles team up with the neutrinos and they head to the Technodrome to finally defeat Shredder and Krang once and for all. The fight ends when Michelangelo uses a Diddy-sized barrel of lubricant to push the Stone Warriors back into Dimension X. The portal stays open just long enough to allow the neutrinos to return home also. The portal closes and it's finally time for the Turtles to face Shredder one-on-one all by himself. But they have to retreat for now because the weather bomb is still up there destroying the city, and Shredder escapes once again. But this encounter with the Turtles has finally spooked Shredder enough that he sees no choice but to finally build Krang a new body. We finally arrive to our season finale. Shredder's latest attack has gotten some attention, but the media is blaming all of the chaos on the Turtles. April begins planning a story that'll clear the gang's name, while the good guys prepare for their final battle with the Shredder. But before they can leave, Shredder hijacks the TV and demonstrates a weapon that he built that can undo mutation. He tells them that it's the only way to return Splinter into his human form, and if they want it, they'll have to come and get it. But the sensei knows that this is an obvious trap, so he decides to go alone to keep Shredder from using the gun to turn the boys back into regular turtles. But somehow they're all together in the very next scene. The gang decides to use the car that the neutrinos left behind to get to the Technodrome, but the car dies when it's out of fuel, and wouldn't you know it, the darn thing runs on plutonium. But the gang can't just ditch the car and hoof it because they need the weapons to be able to fight Shredder and Krang. Donatello runs off to steal some more stuff from Baxter Stockman's apartment, while the rest of the gang stay behind to fight Rocksteady and Bebop. And like always, they make quick work of these guys by tossing them into a dumpster and covering them with concrete. Back at the Technodrome, Shredder has completed Krang's android body, and he awakens him in a scene reminiscent of Frankenstein's monster just as the Turtles arrive for the final battle. Shredder sends an army-sized batch of Foot Clan dudes to hold off the Turtles until Krang wakes up. And they beat this army of robots in the absolutely grossest way I've seen so far, when Leonardo slices a raw sewage pipe and flushes away the bad guys. April finally shows up to work for the first time in a week and gets fired immediately. She tells the boss that the TurtleCom is actually a death ray and forces him to order a news crew to follow her out to the Technodrome. And at this point, I've lost count of how many felonies that the good guys have committed throughout this series. So if you have any idea, let me know in the comments. Master Splinter finally goes one-on-one with his old pupil, the Shredder, as Krang wakes up and contacts his army in Dimension X. They stop him from opening the portal, but then he transforms into a giant kaiju. The boys are just about to get stomped when they're saved by Donatello. And what was this big piece of tech that your boys been working on this whole time? A blimp. Donatello knows that there's something inside the android body that's making him grow that big, and he and Leonardo go inside to investigate. Giant Krang catches Mike and Ralph on the blimp as Donatello destroys the molecular accelerator, and Krang shrinks back down to size. Shredder traps Splinter in the Technodrome and then heads out with the retro mutagen ray to try to help Krang. But he easily escapes this trap and blows up Shredder's super weapon. And I mean, why destroy the ray, okay? Why not, tackle Shredder, knock him upside the head? I mean, when he broke the ray, he did it by throwing his stick at him. Why not just throw the stick at Shredder? The gang chase Shredder and Krang back to the Technodrome, and they get there just in time as Krang opens the portal and his army from Dimension X begins to pass through. But Donatello, who has so far been the only one to actually do anything in this show, reverses the portal, and Krang, his army, Shredder, and the Technodrome get sucked into Dimension X. April runs her story, clearing the Turtles' name, and all the cool young people now love the Turtles, but the old out-of-touch people, they still don't like them, because, old people just never like cool stuff. Shredder and Krang continue to bicker in Dimension X, and that is a wrap on Season 1 of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So watching this as an adult, how does it hold up? Honestly, for me, it was about 50-50. Strictly critically speaking, the story is all over the place. Maybe if they hadn't wasted an episode on the mousetraps, then they could have extended the final episode into a two-parter that wouldn't have made the ending part feel so rushed. Not to mention, the story has more plot holes than Swiss cheese, and can never decide how big anything is. For example, when you see the Technodrome on the outside, yeah, it looks pretty big, but then when you go inside, it looks like it has enough room for like 80 warehouses. Even before Krang can shrink and grow in the android body, you never know how big he is because he changes size constantly. But what I found when I was watching it was my mind didn't really stay on the actual story going on at all. Now you gotta remember, I was 1 year old when this show came out, so I grew up with Ninja Turtles. Turtle-mania was a big part of my preteen childhood. For me, this brought back old memories of being a little kid, playing with the action figures and the thousands of toys that came out at this time. Or playing Ninja Turtles on the playground with my friends, how we all had the lunch boxes at school, we all had the backpacks, the notebooks, the shirts. The ninja sword of nostalgia cut me real deep watching this. So if you grew up with the show like I did, then I think you'll have a lot of fun rewatching this. And by the way, if you do want to bring back some of those old childhood memories, or maybe you just want to share the turtle adventures with your kids, then you're in luck, because the entire series is actually available to watch for free right now on Tubi. Thanks for joining me on this journey down memory lane. Be sure to thumbs up the video if you like it, leave a comment, and don't forget to hit subscribe so that you can join me again on the next episode of Planet Video.